Good afternoon. Welcome. We are going to wait. I'm sorry, there's been a slight delay. We've got one or two connection issues with Essex, but these connection issues will be resolved fairly shortly, I trust. I'm going to wait for a few moments whilst the attendees get spooled in. It takes about 30 seconds. Excellent. Well, look, good afternoon. This is an informal drop-in session, and we're going to be looking at some of the information that we have on the coronavirus hub that we're placing there. And we hope to have Simon Smith, who is very much our specialist in this area, to talk us through the information that's there. And I'm sure he'll be joining us momentarily. I'd just like to quickly introduce the people you've got in front of you at the moment. We have Tim Fairhurst, who I'm sure you all know, very much head of Director of Policy. We've got Sean Taggart, who's the Commercial Director of ETOA, and we have Sonia Wilson. And Sonia has a new role at ETOA, and I would just like, while we're waiting for Simon to come in, to just outline what it is. Sonia, why don't you take over?
Okay, thank you, Tom. Hi, everybody. It's really great to see so many numbers at this webinar, and my new role is Head of Member Engagement, so it's really important for me to see these types of things happening and for so many members to be attending, so that's really great. So the team that we've just introduced will include myself and two others, Abby Olabode, who hopefully most of you know, and also a lady called Naz Ishmael, who will also be contacting you on occasions. The main aim of this team is really to ensure that you're getting the best out of your membership. So through engagement, we want to learn to understand your interests and what you value most from ETOA. We're also there to support you with things like the new member portal, any issues you've got with invoicing or how you log into that portal, updating your profile and contacts and things like that. So we are more or less be your first point of call when it comes to like any kind of support that you need in those areas. The other thing that we're going to be looking at as a team is the new members onboarding process. So with regards to new members, we know that there's quite a lot of work to do in terms of how we welcome you and how we keep in contact for the first year. So we obviously understand that the first year is really important when it comes to membership. So we'll be dealing with that as well. And the other thing, back end really at ETOA, we've got a lot of internal improvements and processes that we want to do to ensure that we can recognise our members' needs. So we'll be working on that sort of within the next month or two, and hopefully we will get to speak to some of you along the way. What I'd like from you as members is if you do have any comments with regards to engagement or how we can better support you, or you know, looking at member value, how we can help with that, then I'm really happy to hear all of that. So hopefully my email will be included somewhere in this webinar and you can contact me directly. And that's it. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Sonia. And we've been joined by Simon, which is great news to see Simon joining us. I think the main purpose, sorry, Sean, I did beg your pardon. I haven't, do you wish to have any further comment on what Sonia said?
Thank you, Tom. No, I think Sonia's put it all extremely eloquently. I think we're all very excited by the role that Sonia is going to fulfil with her team. She knows ETOA backwards, as she does a lot of the established membership. And from my perspective, I suppose it's just welcoming all of you as members. And thanking you for your continued membership through what are undoubtedly traumatic times for this industry and for the people in this industry. And I'm just pleased to join this and hear, you know, all the hard work that Simon in particular has put in to try and helping you guide through the complexity of operating tours in the current circumstances. But no, Sonia, it's great to have you doing this job. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Sean. Look. it's up to me to place what Simon, I hope, is about to tell you in some form of context. I would love it if we were able to answer detailed questions on specific topics. But if you've got any questions, I just would like to raise the fact that we've got a questions bar there. You should see it on the side of your screen. Please feel free to put any questions. I'm just saying immediately that if you're expecting detailed expertise as to what's happening at the moment, let alone what is going to be happening in the near future or middle distance future, I'm afraid you need to find someone with a really good crystal ball for that. I think the thing to note when we're looking at the situation is not good. Ipsos Mori did a poll a couple of weeks ago on a worldwide poll, full scope poll, and 67% of the world's population felt that their government should close the border as a result of COVID. In Australia, 81% felt that Australians who hadn't been vaccinated should not be allowed to leave the country because of the situation. And if you realise quite how low the vaccination rate is in Australia, that's a popular mandate for basically keeping everyone at home. And in the UK, 70%, admittedly this was 2 months ago, but 70% of the people polled in the UK felt that there should be compulsory quarantine in hotels for anybody returning from any foreign country upon arrival in the UK. And these sort of impulses are reflected throughout the world. It's very rare that there is a country which is completely easy with welcoming foreign guests. There are obvious exceptions where this is happening, but in broad terms, the popular sentiment that governments are pandering to is emphatically on the side of restrictions. Now, governments are obviously facing a crisis, and in such a crisis, even governments who aren't quite as popular-minded as perhaps the UK government is at the moment, all governments in a crisis look to do something. Their populations look at them and demand action. And this action, closing borders to all origin markets, or to some origin markets, or partially, or to regions, they know that this is not going to be met with a massive resistance in the population. So it's the easiest thing for them to do. And in a crisis, if it's easy and popular, they do it. Now, in this context, I think we really have to salute the European Commission, who's been able to push forward 2 or 3 quite, effective new initiatives. Firstly, they've put forward a COVID passport. Effectively, the Schengen area is working as a holiday destination. And it means that if you're in Europe and you're you cannot have very many long-haul tourists arriving, you've at least got the scope to have many hundreds of millions of quasi-domestic tourists that can come and visit you. And I know lots of people, for instance, in Germany, are looking forward to go down to Italy, going down to Spain in the near future. Furthermore, they've managed to put the United States, Europe's #1 incoming market, on the white list. And I know a number of American operators are gearing up to start doing tours in August where possible, but definitely in September in continental Europe. I say this is all good news. The fact is that there is still huge scope for things to go wrong. And I'm genuinely concerned that the reaction within Europe to the Delta variant is going to be one where borders and restrictions start getting imposed again. And I also feel quite strongly that the position of the United Kingdom in this, which really should be regarded as a sort of archipelago appendix to Europe at the moment, is almost irrational in its reaction it's very strange that the country with the highest infection rate is imposing the biggest restrictions on incoming visitors, and is effectively at the moment not a destination that can be sold to incoming visitors in the short or medium term. So all this goes to show is that the situation is complex, it's varied, and it's forever changing. And what we try to do is put something together that reflects that, and that means that we can't change it all the time, but we can send you to people who can change things, or certainly change the information when it's relevant. And in order to give you a quick guided tour of this new facility, I'm going to hand you over to Simon. Simon, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for waiting. I've just had a few technical issues, so I'll just start the broadcast now. Okay, today I'm going to show you what is on our website, just been put up about half an hour ago. I'm kind of looking for feedback from members, yourself today, regarding the information that you require and what you'd like to really help easier for you to plan. So I just showed the screen now. Okay, let's have a confirmation that you can see my screen.
That's coming through.
Great.
That's all good, Simon.
So great. So just to say, so this is where our new spreadsheet is going to live for really the immediate future, and I'll explain about what the spreadsheet is. So if you want to look at it, then this is where it will be. This is a member page. Hopefully you would have seen this page already. This is our Coronavirus Hub, which contains a lot of information, mainly at the minute on travel restrictions and key kind of announcements. So we know there's a lot of information here. So the idea of the spreadsheet is to really condense down and show you where it is possible on an entry-level basis only to operate tours. So I've opened the spreadsheet now. This is a new spreadsheet that we've put on the website. Just key things I want to highlight today. These are some of the resources that we've recommended up to now: the Reopen EU, UNWTO, IATA, and Sherpa. Going through the spreadsheet, as I have in the last kind of couple of weeks, 3 weeks, there are actually a lot of inaccuracies, just not up to date. So really the goal of this spreadsheet is to kind of give you really kind of a central database to kind of look at the latest information, and also we've kind of highlighted the different policy areas. So I'm just going to go through some of the spreadsheet now. Just to say, I have collapsed the panes. So when you open the spreadsheet, you can open all the panes and you'll see all the spreadsheet together. But for this purpose, just to say, these are the key links. This one here, travel into the EU. That is where all the EU whitelist countries are currently up to date. On the whitelist, what that means is this is non-EU citizens in non-EU resident countries travelling into the EU. It's a recommendation, so not every member state is adopting it, but most are. And what it means is all travellers can arrive or permit entry into those countries. There might be slight differences, though, regarding those who are fully vaccinated and those which aren't vaccinated. So really, there is an advantage to be fully vaccinated. Where there are some differences as well is the EU also recommend that fully vaccinated not on the EU whitelist, but not from a virus with a very concerned country. They should be admitted as well. The reason why we're seeing a lot of confusion is there's no set country which agrees, for instance, on limiting countries. So, for instance, Switzerland, if you're fully vaccinated, you can arrive from all countries. And there's a few others as well. In UK outbound, what we are seeing is a divided approach regarding vaccinated travellers. So, are some going to spreadsheet. So, I think these are kind of key kind of look at. We've split it up into, say, Schengen area, UK, non-Schengen EU. In this case, because the EU countries are using the UK digital certificate, they are pretty much included in most intra-EU travel. And as you can see, most of the intra-EU has opened up. And also, we also with UK as well.
Simon, I'm really sorry. I think
go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you are breaking up completely. I think it might be an idea if you logged out and came back in again. If you could try and do that one more time, it would be very good. I'm afraid you're being defeated by the technology at the moment.
Tom, while Simon's logging back in, can I just sort of quickly add something while
definitely
while that's there? So thank you, Kathy and others for adding some questions. I think one of the ways of looking at the spreadsheet that Simon will give you a guided tour of is that, as Tom was saying at the beginning, it's very hard to get accurate information. Even though there's very good websites like Reopen EU, they're not necessarily fully comprehensive or always up to date. So what Simon's done is produce a grid which gives you ready access to the official websites, so that, for example, and Kathy, this would be your case, you're a US operator, you want to send people to France and to Italy on separate programs in September and October. What's the situation? So the idea is that this grid will be a way of you corroborating, am I right in terms of what the status is for allowing US double vaccinated citizens into France and Italy? What will the testing requirements be? And you'll obviously know them for the testing requirements on your way home. And also a nice comment from Urs, it's not just you, lots of us. So Urs Eberhard from Switzerland Tourism, welcome to this. And Switzerland's obviously a country that's trying very hard to allow people in. It wasn't just you having sound problems, it was all of us. So before Simon comes in, if I could just sort of frame where this work sits. We're here to do whatever's useful for members. We know top of the list, apart from all the financial support and so forth that we've needed from government, whether it's furlough or anything else, what is the operating environment? And the biggest problem related to that is, can I get there? What are the requirements? So travel restrictions, as Simon was explaining, has been very problematic, mostly because it's still a national competence throughout Europe. So the EU's done an amazing job getting the COVID certificate done in record time in EU terms. So the fact that there is a digital COVID certificate and it happened in the space of a few months was record-breaking legislative and implementation progress. And the capacity for all the various people at airports and airline gate staff to recognize health credentials, whether they're from individual countries or whether it's an EU recognized form, that's going to be quite problematic. There are 10, 11, 12 different validation apps that people are trying to use to get through the airport faster. So it's not only what are the requirements, it's what are the operational and logistical impacts of these restrictions as you try and get in and out of airports. And we know from our colleagues with whom we work closely in Brussels, like Airlines for Europe and others, that the sort of time and motion studies they've been carrying out in airports, how many times does the same information get checked from when you're sitting at home checking in to when you arrive in destination and finally leave the airport? Huge variation, not much consistency, and that's obviously causing uncertainty in the operating environment. Before this webinar, this drop-in began, we did ask you to sort of say what were the questions in your mind. I know, Kathy, you had a question about the recognition of the COVID certificates in the US. So for those of you who've got particular questions, particularly if you've got a booking around the corner this October or this autumn sometime and you want to know, is this going to be possible? Do get that question in, and then we can use this magic sheet to demonstrate where you would be able to find the information. ETOA is small. We can't possibly compete with government-funded websites to, say here is the definitive information. But what we can do is point you to the official sites. So we've got some questions coming in from Karen. Tom, I don't know if you're seeing these. So, particular question with regard to the UK, and I know we've been involved in a lot of UK inbound work. I'm hearing an echo of my own voice. I don't know where that's coming from. So the question from Karen, Tom, UK Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said that foreign vaccinations will be recognised later this summer. Have we heard any gossip as to what later this summer means?
She follows up neatly by saying, I know this is a crystal ball question. This is a crystal ball question, Karen. If I could get inside the mind of Grant Shapps, who actually in his defence is pushing really strongly to open things up. But as I mentioned earlier, it's a situation where the government is being pilloried by the opposition for not being strict enough, and their only response at the moment is to be as strict as possible. So I'm not optimistic, but the current situation in the UK is simply both unsustainable and outrageous. We have another question coming in from Eberhard saying that there's not a question, but he provided a really good link, which is an official source for what's happening in Switzerland. Thank you so much for that. I trust it's the one we've got on our spreadsheet, but if it isn't, it will be updated very quickly. Tim, you were going on to talk about the questions that were posed earlier.
Just actually reviewing the live questions now in terms of which Chinese brand vaccine will be recognised in Europe. Again, Simon's going to be the expert on that, but you've got the European Medicines Agency and ECDC that does a recognition in Europe, and that doesn't prevent individual countries, for example, Hungary choosing to use the Sputnik vaccination, for example. So there is an approved list. Simon will have further information on that. It's very interesting for us to learn which origin markets today's members speak for. So clearly we've got US, clearly got China. It'd be interesting to know if there's anyone on the call now who's doing intra-European, so essentially producing tours within the Schengen zone, because that does appear to be a lot simpler. Good news for those who live within it. So if there's anyone on the call who's intra-Schengen and has got any questions or observations on that, that would be welcome as well. So if no further questions on that, I'll have a look at the ones earlier, but again, we're handicapped by the fact the Oracle is not with us. And one of the ironies of Simon spending a lot of time developing all this information in order to share it with members is that I've got a feeling, and this is in the context of a website review we've all run recently, is not that many members have had a chance to really look deeply at what's on the website. We've got some recent traffic information to get a sense of how many people visit certain pages. So it'd be very helpful to know, please join in. What would be the best way of us providing information to you? Is it too deep down? Have you really just not had time to explore what's there? Because over the next few months, we're going to change the navigation and the way the content's organized altogether on the website. And instead of saying this is coronavirus and this will be something that lives with us forever, we're just going to have a section on the website called travel restrictions, because one way or another, we think that those are going to be there. And certainly from a group's operations perspective, it's not just about borders, it's about how many people are in a group in a certain attraction, it's about how many people are allowed on a coach, it's about whether there's any cross-border land transport issues that are not obvious. So if there's any particular category of information that you're not finding anywhere else that you think we should focus on, that would be very helpful input for the purposes of this meeting. But I'm just going to ask my colleague Aaron, if he's still behind the scenes organizing, if we're in touch with Simon to see if he's able to reconnect, because I don't want to spend everyone's time staring at non-animated spreadsheet.
Hi Tim, can you hear me now?
We can hear you fine, Simon. So
okay, yes.
Really glad you're back. So can I suggest you go slowly, Simon?
Yeah.
I think maybe a good place to start would be just to help people understand how to locate themselves in this sheet. Let's imagine you're an American operator. You're trying to find out what the arrangements are for getting to Europe. How would you use this spreadsheet? Maybe start with that.
Okay, yes. Sorry everyone for the technical difficulties. As I was saying earlier, we have split it, the spreadsheet up into EU, and that includes the non-EU Schengen countries as well, into the section top. And then just below, we've got the UK in there, and we do intend to add Balkans and some other Eastern European countries in due course. But the focus really is on, as Tim was saying, intra-EU travel and those on the EU whitelist. If you're on the EU whitelist, travel does look good into the EU. Not every country is following the whitelist, as we'll just show you shortly. The UK, there is a divided opinion on fully vaccinated UK being admitted, but most are doing that. So we'll show that now. So when looking at this spreadsheet, what the idea was really to give you one source of information. In the first column here, this is really the main page to look at and make sure it's up to date. These are all official government pages on the entry restrictions. What these pages do, however, is not just based on tourism, it's every sort of restriction. So what we've done is analysed shortly in the spreadsheet regarding travelling for tourism and what is possible. So, to start with, we've put the links all together. So the important links to kind of bookmark. If you like us to display separately, please let us know. We've also got the traveller contact tracing form. This is also known as a passenger locator form. We've listed this for all the countries which require it. You may not need to complete it, depending on where you're coming from, but the form will say that if you don't need to. We've also put the NTO webpage as well on coronavirus. I know Switzerland, that got mentioned earlier. We have Switzerland link down here, as well as the official immigration links just to shortly to the left. So, but please look at the NTO sites. They are very good. They are based on tourism as well. Some are slightly clearer than others, but yeah, Switzerland is a good one to look at. We also do additional information on in-destination restrictions. So these are where it's maybe not communicated on the NTO website, but a bit more information regarding what is possible in destination. These are important to look at because we are seeing some countries now asking for kind of certification, whether that's on a negative test or a vaccination to enter, particularly hospitality. So I'll explain a bit more in a minute on that when we explain regarding countries like Ireland, for instance, where it's slightly different if you're coming from the EU or non-EU. So the regarding intra-EU travel, this is our kind of summary. So this is, and as you said, we've got review date there. So I checked this morning on this. We haven't listed every single country which changes category, but this is really the policy, and most countries do let all travellers in. They might, maybe when they change categories, they might have to display the EU certificate, or in other cases you're not. But generally, we've analysed it. So this is for tourism purposes, and so we highlighted it, all countries. That means all travellers from all countries in this spreadsheet. The key one really is kind of Bulgaria. So Bulgaria have just red listed Spain and Cyprus. So you're unable to enter from Bulgaria, and that's fully vaccinated as well, but majority are letting in travellers. And then the next spreadsheet, so the next column is regarding testing requirements. We know this is a headache, particularly for the kind of the teenagers and also those who are not fully vaccinated yet. On the fully vaccinated, some countries do take a different approach regarding whether 2 doses are satisfactory. Length of time after 2 doses, it really does vary, but generally, as a rule of thumb, normally those who are fully vaccinated are considered after 2 doses, if it's applicable for 2, 14 days, and the 1 dose, which is the Janssen, that's typically about 21 days after. And regarding the actual vaccine being validity, it's kind of divided at the minute regarding how long it lasts for, but generally at least 6 months from when the person has been fully vaccinated, up to 12 months. So hopefully when scientific kind of research comes out, that this potentially might be extended, but just something to be aware of when you are planning. And it does say that on the official links regarding how long a vaccine is valid for. Now we're talking about non-EU. This is where it gets more divided. So in a lot of cases, if you're on the EU whitelist, you will be permitted entry. However, there are a increasing number of countries which are allowing fully vaccinated, and we have listed it, particularly EMA and WHO. So I know there's been a question regarding the CDC and whether that's recognised. Most countries are accepting the CDC, not because it's a CDC, it's because the vaccine, first of all, the US vaccines are EMA approved, which is the first point, and also the vaccine would be English language, and the websites do say how the vaccine information is displayed. Particularly, it's normally full name, date of birth, etc. So there's only a couple which don't accept the US certificates at the minute. These are Norway, so Norway don't accept US certificates. Belgium don't either, but Belgium isn't an issue for US because they're on the EU whitelist, so all travellers from the US can enter Belgium. And Hungary as well doesn't accept US certificates just yet when you arrive by air. If you're arriving by river, or by land from any other land country apart from Ukraine, there are no COVID kind of documentation required. So all travellers can arrive. We know the river cruise operators have been asking this. So if you're coming from Austria, down the Danube, you can enter. The key point to note is if you want to attend a mass event, so hospitality is fine, but mass event, then you would need a recognised vaccine certificate. So currently the UK is not one, nor is the US. The EU certificate is recognised, and there is a link just on the spreadsheet which we outline, which says all the countries approved so far. It's a different list, so we can't. Just to highlight, we should hopefully see more on the US situation in the next kind of couple of weeks. So regarding the kind of non-EU testing requirements, again, similar to intra-EU, we've outlined what the testing requirements are. So, but the key kind of summary.
Can I just jump in again? Sorry, just because I'm seeing various questions come in, and I know your visibility won't necessarily be as good. There's been a question about the emergency brake in Ireland, and I responded in the chat to say, well, emergency brake is really just a fancy name for reminding everyone that each member state, or even if they're not in the EU, any state has total autonomy over its borders. So if it thinks that the numbers from either an origin market or inside its own territory are going the wrong way, or other circumstances are of concern, then it can suddenly change things overnight. But do you have, I know you're quite close to the situation in Ireland, do you have any sense of how things are going to develop, particularly in Ireland for long haul?
Yeah, okay, so Ireland, they reopened to international travel without quarantine from Monday just gone. The emergency brake is actually an EU proposal still. So it was brought in May, and the UK was talked about, as you might have seen it in the media, but there was no agreement on the UK being added to the emergency brake. So currently there is no countries on the emergency brake that are EU approved. So the point to highlight with Ireland, so if you're fully vaccinated, you can enter the country. They do have mandatory hotel quarantine. That's normally for the non-fully vaccinated, and there are a list of designated states, but for instance, the US and the UK, they can enter Ireland if you're fully vaccinated. There is no testing pre-arrival, and that's both from UK and US. There's no requirement to quarantine. So just to highlight with the US, it coming into Ireland on Island of Ireland tours. So there is no land border, of course, between Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland. However, the Northern Ireland do currently follow the UK government on the traffic light system. So what this means is that the US will be classed as amber in Northern Ireland. This is arriving into Northern Ireland. This is even if you arrive through Republic of Ireland, you would be under the amber requirements, which is actually quarantine and 2 tests. There is a workaround in if you've spent 10 days in Republic of Ireland, you can officially then go into Northern Ireland and there's no requirement to quarantine or have any day 2 tests, for instance, because the common travel area is for 10 days. So I know we're speaking to our Northern Ireland counterparts on this at the minute, trying to get a coordinated approach. I know there's a question about the time frame for the UK government open up to fully vaccinated international. We are in contact with the Department for Transport. They are working through the proposals at the minute, particularly regarding vaccine recognition. There is actually a trial taking place at the minute. So this is by BA and Virgin, and this it's coming from the US. But the reason we haven't advertised this, unlike the COVID tested flights from Italy, is that the passengers would still have to isolate in the UK on those vaccine trial flights. What with the information we do have from the vaccine trial, though, is the UK government are looking at WHO approved vaccines. So that would include the Sinopharm vaccine, for instance. So we're hoping to have more news soon on the UK. There is an update next week, a formal review update of the traffic light system. What we might see next week potentially is a review of testing requirements for green countries. So currently the green is a day 2 PCR test in the UK and a pre-departure test as well. So we might see some movement there. We understand there could be an announcement regarding fully vaccinated being accepted on amber at any time. So we're just waiting to hear. I know it's very difficult to plan. The government.
Simon, can I jump in again? Because again, questions are coming thick and fast, and I can see the clock is ticking. And it's prompted partly by you saying we're in touch with the transport departments in the UK.
Yeah.
I had a question with regard to group travel in particular, and whether there's any resource people can go to find out what the requirements are for the use of PPE or social distancing on collective transport, such as coaches. And I gave a quick response in the chat to say, again, it's a national competence, and in some countries there's a regional variation. For example, in Spain, where you could have different parts of the country in different zones. But if you have any comment on not just borders, but as regards requirements for collective transport and anything else that's specific to groups moving around, any suggestions for resources there, that would be interesting. That's a question from Kathy, thank you.
Okay, yeah, regarding kind of capacity, it kind of varies by country. Regarding the UK, they did have a rule of 6. This has been removed as of Monday just gone. So there would be no, so social distancing has been lifted, for instance, in attractions and hotels. I do recommend speaking to the national tourist boards. They would certainly should be closer regarding the actual in destination. It's a very complex in the sense of, as far as I'm aware, I think it is possible to do group transport, but yeah, it's very, very varied. So I don't want to give an answer just yet on the webinar. Happy to take the question offline and we can help. We certainly would like to give information more on the resources page. Unfortunately, the information is quite sparse at the minute. There is a lot of guidance.
And again, I'm just going to jump in, Simon. Yeah. I think in a way, identifying where the gaps are is almost as useful as where the good information is. So I think, we know for sure that operators need to know, what are the operating constraints in destination. Coach operators based in Italy, for example, will know what they're allowed to do. So your partners in destination should be able to give you good information on that. And it may well be that you as a company, and I know this is true from a lot of operators, particularly people who are using travel safe guidelines and so forth, irrespective of whether there is a legal requirement, in order to reassure your clients and to sort of manage a relationship with your partner providers in destination, you've decided to impose certain limits on number of people in a group for a full-size coach, whether or not driver will wear PPE, etc. So I think it's one of those things where it's quite often the case that the private sector will choose to exceed what the mandatory requirement is, but the gap in the information is where can you find out exactly what the deal is. And an example last year was a fully loaded full-size coach could roll from Germany into the Netherlands. When they got to Holland, they had to split into 3 canal boats for a tour of Amsterdam because the social distancing requirements were such in the Netherlands as distinct from Germany. And from a consumer perspective, clearly that doesn't make any sense. But both the Netherlands and Germany had come to different conclusions. But I think that's a really good takeaway for today, to see, is there more information we can find with regard to collective transport that's private? So private coaches are going to be different from using public buses and the metro in cities as well. And we're keen to make sure that, that there's no accidental prejudice against group travel. And one of the things that came up last year was there was a pragmatic view taken on using public transport in cities, but a slightly stricter approach being taken with private coaching, which clearly made no sense, because as a group of people traveling together, that was a much better way of managing risk than public transport altogether. So I'm just reading a response to what I was saying from Julia from Rome. Welcome, Julia. Hello to all our friends at Trafalgar. And she says that in Italy, we currently have 50% capacity with masks on board, and a new decree from the government is expected by the end of this week. So this may well change. Fantastic example, Julia, in our working group in Italy. We often find things out from our members. Thank you so much. Please do keep the information coming in, and we'll keep sharing. Sorry, Simon, back to you. And please keep the questions coming in. We've got 10 minutes or so.
Okay, yes. I think I just, talk about the UK. So, so Northern Ireland does follow the UK. So once the UK government, hopefully, said they get an announcement in the next kind of couple of weeks, then, because there is another green list review as well, early kind of August, that Northern Ireland will then exempt US fully vaccinated from having to quarantine because of the amber exemption. But I'm happy to take those questions offline regarding Ireland and UK, because it is very fluid at the minute. But the date to look out for with the UK is next kind of Thursday, we expect. That's the formal review of the next formal review of the traffic light system. So just going on to the rest of our spreadsheet. So the US.
Sorry, Simon, I'm going to be cheeky again because the clock's ticking. Really good question from Lena Mignard. I hope I pronounced your name right. Again, in terms of information sources, we know, I mean, for example, in Ireland, indoor hospitality at hotels, it's only for the hotel guests and so forth, and there are all sorts of variations. But she asks, and I'll read the question, is there a place to find info on requirements in each country, such as where masks are required, do restaurants and hotels require vaccines, are reservations required for restaurants, and do people need to register with contact info when going to restaurants, museums, etc.? So I know there's a lot of variation across Europe, and France recently introduced a requirement to present health credentials at national museums, and that's going to get rolled out into hospitality as well. But any tips, suggestions about where that information is? Is that at the NTO website or elsewhere, Simon?
Yes, so the NTO website is a good source. The other column, which is additional information in restrictions, that's also another good one to look at. Regarding hospitality, there are a few countries insisting on fully vaccinated or tests to enter. So on Ireland's case, you need to be fully vaccinated or recover to enter, and this is start from next Monday. So Cabinet approved this yesterday. We understand a US certification will be fine, and same with the UK. So if you're not vaccinated, you are restricted to outdoor dining or eating in hotels. So that's Ireland. On Austria, they also require in hospitality. The point on Austria is they do accept WHO certificates into the country. However, if you were then using that vaccine certificate to enter a restaurant, hotel, it needs to be EMA approved vaccine. So there's a difference there. So the US.
Simon, I'm going to jump in again.
Yeah.
Another question. We've already said before that with intra-Schengen, things are looking good. And Monique Kazmazkis, I'm guessing you're from Lithuania? You guessed, that's a very rude thing to guess from people's names. But there's a good question. How are border crosses working within Schengen countries? For example, crossing from Germany to Austria or from the Netherlands to Belgium, what is the border crossing like between France and the UK, non-Schengen, as far as requirements and procedures? So do you want to maybe quickly sketch what you see as the likely path for UK in and out of EU, but also just reassure people about how smooth we expect intra-Schengen travel to be? So UK and EU and intra-Schengen, Simon.
Okay, the intra-EU, so if you've got an EU COVID certificate, that's pretty fine. You might have to present it, you might not do. Some countries like Germany, for instance, you only have to register in after you arrive from a risk country. So the issue would be, so for instance, if you come from the US, if you fly directly into Germany, you would need, I think it's a PCR antigen test. However, you could fly into Netherlands and cross the border from Netherlands into Germany, and you wouldn't need to do a test because the US isn't on a risk country. So the transiting is quite difficult, and that's why I say please send us questions. Regarding the UK travelling by land into Europe, the Netherlands don't permit UK entry, and this is fully vaccinated as well. And France, while France do permit fully vaccinated travellers returning to the UK now from France, there will still be a quarantine at this present time. So going by land into mainland Europe is unable to be done from the UK at the minute. But regarding,
sorry, go on to Schengen, and I've got another question just about land borders versus aviation, which is going to be of interest to the Schengen members as well. So go ahead with Schengen, Simon.
Yes, so regarding controls, a lot of the time they're using the passenger locator form, so requiring people to sign up in advance. For instance, Belgium, if you're in the country for less than 48 hours, then the controls don't apply. So it's a very fluid. We don't say this on our spreadsheet because of the different movements and the different time frames as well, because some countries say you need to be 14 days in one country, others are happy with 7 days in one country, and this regarding controls. So I'm happy to take the questions offline, and if like regarding tour planning, and we can kind of say if this is possible or not. But certainly a lot of internal Schengen borders have been lifted. I think Finland are looking to lift theirs next Monday. So you'll see a lot of change in Finland next Monday. But I just wanted to highlight, certainly on the last thing on the spreadsheet was, I know I got questions about, if I'm coming from the US, do I need to be fully vaccinated? Can I enter if I'm not vaccinated? So we have outlined the cases where you don't have to be vaccinated and you're still permitted entry. So that's just something to compare. Generally, if you are fully vaccinated, it is an advantage. Just on arranging tests, for instance, and generally some countries, I think Finland was one, Ireland's another one, and Norway, where if you're not fully vaccinated, there's quarantine on arrival. So, but yeah, that's pretty much to the end of the spreadsheet. I know there's a lot of information there, so please do let me know, let the team know. We're trying to find out how best to present this information, so it's useful for you all to look at. We will try and keep it up to date and quite regularly. But say these are the important government inbound kind of web pages, so please bookmark these. Reopen EU is a good source, but it might not be the most up to date, and in some cases it's a bit waffly. So what we're trying to do is say we've broken it down so it's just for tourism purposes only. So Tim, is there any other questions?
Yeah, well, just to reflect on the land only, and huge credit to Simon for collating all this information, which, you know, everyone who's on this meeting, we will make sure you get a message after this with the appropriate links. And as Simon said, feedback on how this works and what information is missing, or how we should present things better, and how you can spread the news within your organizations, because I recognize quite a lot of the names in this meeting, and, you know, thank you for your sort of loyal participation. One of our challenges is getting more people to realize what sorts of resources we have, and that's partly sharing the knowledge within organizations, but it's also getting it out more widely. So, you know, the more people are aware of the knowledge, the more we can get some reassurance out there. But just to illustrate, on the land borders, you know, just take Spain and Portugal, that's got a land border of over 1,200 kilometers. It's really obvious that you can't control traffic crossing all the roads over 1,250 kilometers, so it won't happen. It is possible to control people at airports because the control infrastructure is there. So it's very quickly becoming apparent there is a big mismatch. And you heard Simon mention earlier that there's a rather strange paradox that US citizens can enter Hungary even if they're not vaccinated, if they're on a river cruise arriving in Budapest, but they can't arrive at the airport yet because Hungary doesn't yet recognize the vaccinations in the US. This doesn't make sense. We continue to say it doesn't make sense, but there's a very strong sort of political impediment to suddenly, as Tom said right at the beginning, say, look, this is crazy. We've all got a little bit too paranoid here. We need to take a much more proportionate and risk-based approach to travel restrictions. That's what we're arguing for very passionately behind the scenes. But I think what you're seeing with the work Simon's doing is that it's a very fragmented picture still, and we're just doing what we can to help you manage what continues to be a very messy situation. So I'm going to turn back over to Tom. I know Simon continues to be available at the end of email. You can write to us at policy@etoa.org. You can have a rummage around the website, but this really should feel like a consultation. The website's for you, it's not for our benefit, and we'd be really grateful for any feedback. Simon, well done. It's Herculean work. Tom, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Tim. I think you've done an amazing job with some real technical challenges here. You'd make a very good quarterback under pressure, I think. Or maybe you would have made maybe you were a very good quarterback under pressure. No, thank you, Tim. And thank you, Simon, for what's been, as Tim said, an enormous effort to collate all this information. It stands and fails by its ability to explain itself, I ought to emphasize. So the information you need should be there, but if it isn't there, obviously let us know. And if you think you've got a better way of presenting it, or if there's anything missing, keep us in the picture. For what it's worth, Monica Kosmowskis is not from the Baltic States. She's from Image Tours in Grand Rapids, Michigan, over the road from Milwaukee, not Finland, over the pond from Milwaukee, not Finland. Just for the record, I'd be silly if I didn't point that out. I also would like to salute David McGuffin from his eponymous Exploring Europe. He's run tours in Greece and Italy. He wants to emphasize it went smoothly. So business is possible. We just can't pretend it's straightforward if you want to do a European, intra-country European tour, but it is possible. And it's up to us to try and explain how this possibility can be affected by you. It's been a super tough year. Been super tough 2 years. We will be back in touch with another drop-in fairly shortly on another subject. In the meantime, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that all our eyes and all our thoughts are on the Global European Marketplace, which is taking place on, I believe, October the 29th, the Friday before World Travel Market, in person in London. We hope everything will be okay at that stage. That's what we're banking on. With that thoughts, I'm going to leave you in peace. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, audience, for attending. As we said, we will be posting the links to the relevant information straight through to you shortly. Thanks a lot.